Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome to daylight savings over here. We jumped
Ooh.
forward an hour. If you guys are in one of those states that does not do that, let us know what it's like because it's always a hot mess for a little bit. It's currently 9 p.m. and we should be like, "Oh no, we're great because it's really 8 p.m." No, I feel every bit of that 9 p.m. today.
Well, I forgot about time change and I just woke up and I was like, wow, I slept kind of late. It's like 10:30. Weird. I guess I was tired. And then I got on TikTok and someone was talking about daylight savings and I was like, oh,
Like, oh
there's that
yeah.
little thing. So,
I'm really embarrassed of this, but I'm going to share it anyway. So last night, I have a child, so I do pay attention to daylight savings because I need to like adjust her sleep, a little bit. I didn't do a lot. Like there are people out there who be like, "Oh, adjust it by like 15 minutes, like 4 days." And I was like, "I'm gonna put you to bed like a half hour early last night, and then
mhm.
normal time tonight, and you'll be fine." And she did fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, so after I put her to bed last night, I was getting my coffee set up, which I usually set it to like brew at the same time, like even on the weekends, because my child wakes up at the same time anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I just could not, for the life of me, figure out what I needed to set it. I was like, do I set it at like the regular time I would wake up? Do I set it an hour? I couldn't. I sat there and just stared at it for a long time, and I was like, I don't. So I just didn't do the auto brew and just turned it on manually this morning because I was like, I cannot figure out what I should do with this right
Yeah.
now. Like, I
It
was like,
gets
this
so
should not be so
confusing. I felt the
complicated.
same way when I change time zones, which happens
Yes.
traveling that way is I'm always just like, so what time is it? And the worst part of it was my recent work trip. I was in Central Time, but I still
Mm-hmm.
had to do everything on Eastern Time. So
Uh,
then it was there's things I have to get done by 8 a.m.,
oh my
which meant I
gosh.
had to get it done by 7 a.m., which meant I
Yeah.
had to be up by 6:30, which is oh, it's not bad. That's your normal time. But I kept staying up until 11:30 anyway. So I was really just losing sleep this whole
You're
trip.
like, I'm just all over the place. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We slept until like the normal time that we would have woken up, which was like, an hour later. But my baby still went to bed at her regular bedtime tonight. So, which, she got a short nap today because they had to come watch us run our race. So,
Hmm.
which Courtney and I ran today, which is probably also why we're so tired on this Sunday evening.
And it wasn't bad during, but after, I was so cold with that rain
So
and it was so
cold.
cold. And I took a hot shower when I got home, which you think would be the opposite of what you would do. Oh, sorry. I had a hiccup.
We'll
Which
cut
you think
that
would
out
be
for you guys.
which you think would be the opposite. And it even Kevin came up and he was just standing in the bathroom. He was like, the steam feels
It
nice.
Oh my God, it felt so good. Like I didn't because like I was freezing, but like I was also chasing a toddler around the parking lot. So I guess we should clarify. So it was like 45-ish and like misty rain.
And
So like
no
after
sunshine either. So it already
yeah,
feels kind of colder.
yeah, exactly. So then like after the race, after everyone finished, then you got like free pizza and beer. So we were all just like standing around, hanging out, eating, drinking, whatever. But like I didn't realize like I was cold then, but like when I got home and I started taking my layers off and like all of my layers were like soaking wet from sweat. And then I've been standing out in like the
Hmm.
cold, kind of rainy since. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like chilled to the bone. But then I had to give Millie a bath first because she had been sitting on the wet parking lot. So like her pants were wet. So I'm like, I need to get
Yeah.
her warm as quickly as possible. So then I'm just like in my like soaking wet clothing, like trying to like hurry up and give her a bath. And then that hot shower, just like, I
It
can't,
was nice.
just perfection. I can't even put into words how amazing it felt. Like, so good.
So good. But yeah, that's how today's going. It's just,
Yeah.
oh, there goes that light again. There is a street light outside my window that scares me every time it flickers. It's like a horror movie out here. Anyway.
Which reminds me, last night I was home alone because my husband went out with some friends and I was texting Courtney and I was like, I was going to do some podcast research during my daughter's nap and then she didn't nap. So then I was like, do I want to do it now or do I not want to do it while I'm home alone because I'm a chicken? And she's like, yeah, I feel that. I feel the same way. Like when I'm traveling out of town, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. And then I like heard this like thumping noise that was like coming from like the side of my house. And I was like, oh my God, like someone's trying to break in. And I was like, oh, that's the dryer that I turned on 5 minutes ago.
That
I'm so
happened
dumb.
on my last work trip as I was researching the Colorado hammer killer one, which is someone who would just
Mhm.
like walk in and like hit you with a hammer.
Yeah.
And like first there was someone either across the hall or like next to me who kept opening and closing their hotel door room. So every time it
Oh
sounded
my
like it was
God.
my hotel door opening. And I was like, I swear I triple bolted this shit. And I'm like
Yeah.
looking like, who is it? Who's in there?
I think it definitely depends too on like what case you're researching. Cause like if I'm researching a case, someone that like they knew or like they're out at some like what, but if it's like a home invasion type murder case,
Yeah.
I cannot.
That's like when Kevin left one time and we were like researching Ted Bundy until like the wee hours of
Yes.
the morning. And I was like, I'm terrified.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
like,
terrified right now.
I don't want to close my eyes. I'm just gonna lay here all night with my
I'm
eyes
just gonna
open.
be awake.
Yeah. Also, I had another thought real quick that I was going to ask you guys about, and I want to do an Instagram story poll. And I wonder if you guys
Okay.
watch TV with subtitles because I feel like it's getting more common. Like I feel like I talk to more
Hmm.
people now that do. But like Andrew and I were watching you before we just came on here to start recording, and we were like eating dinner, and like something happened, and our subtitles like went away, and I was like, "Where are my subtitles? Like I like what is happening in the show? How do you guys hear TV while you're eating?" Like I don't
Yeah.
understand. Do you guys turn it up like super loud or like do you just like miss it and then like hope for the best and figure it out along the way? I just need to know. So I'm gonna do
We
an
are a
Instagram poll.
subtitle household.
Yes.
Because it's just like I don't know, I'm dumb half the time. And I feel like I just like need to read stuff sometimes. But again, it's just like if noises happen or whatever, it's like I can't hear what's happening. Like when I first started watching Outlander with my sister, she like refused to put the subtitles on. And I'm like, I
Oh
cannot
gosh.
understand these
No.
accents. I I don't
And like
understand.
Game of Thrones, I swear there have been so many times that things have happened that I'm like, if I did not have subtitles on, I would not have heard this like super important sentence that was like whispered or that was like in a different
Yeah.
accent or like whatever. I can't, I have no idea what's happening. I just miss everything. I don't know. So I just need to
Yeah.
know how other people feel about this. But I thought about that when I was trying to crunch on my chips and queso and my subtitles went away and I'm like, what's happening? Where are they? What are we doing? And
I
it
know.
was like a voiceover. So I can't even like watch their mouth to like kind of
Yeah.
piece together what they're saying. Like it was literally just like a voiceover and like things happen. And I'm just like, anyway, have you
How
seen
is the new season of You? I was about to ask.
I was about to ask if you've seen it. I like it. I like it a lot. We have 2 episodes left. So I'll let you
And that's
know.
like since the second batch came out. Second batch is out, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, it
Okay.
just came out this week. Have you guys started it or no?
Not yet.
Okay. I
Uh
really like it. I want to talk to you about it once you've seen it because
okay. It's
yeah.
we'll probably watch it soon, but I don't know. I don't know where they're gonna go with it. And I'm just like I just got like nervous about it, I guess. But I feel like seen like nobody talking about it either. Like I feel like every other season people were like posting spoilers every other day. And then now like I feel
That's
like I don't see
true.
anyone talking about it at all.
Yeah, that is true. I wonder why that is. Also, my computer sounds like it's about to take flight right now. And I'm hoping that doesn't translate to my microphone because
Well, I can hear people yelling outside the window. So this is gonna be a great episode, guys.
also, last week's episode, we always tell you guys how much we talk at the beginning and end of the episodes. Last week, we like broke the Zoom. Like, we talked for so long, the
Mhm.
Zoom was like, cannot convert this recording. And we thought we were going to have to re record the whole thing. But thankfully, Courtney was able to restart her computer and was able to get it to work. But for that reason, when we started today's episode, we talked for our like 30, 35 minutes, whatever. And then we're like, okay, we need to like restart the Zoom so this doesn't happen again. So, and we're
Yeah.
already 10 minutes into this Zoom. So I feel like we should just get him into this episode because I don't know where
We
we've
should get into
gone.
the episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta get to it.
Yeah, I did have one quick update that I wanted to share that I saw on a TikTok. Why did I say that so weird? That I had to look into, and there's not like a ton of information yet. But there's this former respiratory therapist named Jennifer Ann Hall, who has been convicted of killing 2 patients now. So 37-year-old David Wesley Harper and 75-year-old Fern Franco. And she also is suspected of killing 9 people. So she's been charged with 2 of them, but it's suspected of killing 9 of them, basically by administering unauthorized medications. yeah, just so fucked up. Like coming from a respiratory therapist and like in the medical field who is supposed to be there to help you and to save you. And I mean, we've seen this so many times with nurses, and just horrific that it's like popping up again in 2023, you know?
It's crazy. There's so many of them. So when you think about like serial killers and like murderers and stuff, it's like you want to think it's like the minority, and then you hear how many times it
Yeah.
happens, and it's just really scary.
Also, apparently, this happened like 20 years ago as I'm looking through this
So
article.
she's just now getting found
Yes.
out.
Yes. So she was just
That's
charged.
impressive.
Right? So like how many more like wow. Wow. Okay.
Like impressive on the investigator's part. Might I add that they're
Yes.
able to put that, not impressive that she, sorry, let me just clarify. Impressive, like on the investigation part, that they were able to 20 years later, when it's
Get
already so
enough.
hard on like angel of death cases to prove it, like prove it for these cases.
So it looks like she was interviewed in 2012 from people who like thought that she was a serial killer. And so like she's I guess been long suspected. Okay, this is a people.com article if you guys want to read into it a little more thoroughly, because I'm just kind of reading this as I'm spewing information out of my mouth right now. So yeah, wow, this is
That's
quite
crazy.
the story. Yeah, so I guess we're going to follow this and let you guys know kind of where this goes.
Definitely.
So our sources for today's episode included an episode of Unsolved Mysteries called A Death in Oslo, a Medium.com article, TheSun.com, and Men'sHealth.com. So, and it seems like most of the articles were written like kind of as a follow-up to the Unsolved Mysteries. Like I can't find anything that existed before the Unsolved Mysteries. This did happen in another country, so that might be why too. Like there may be newspaper articles and stuff that we just don't have access to, but a lot of the articles were like, oh, here are questions raised since the Unsolved Mysteries came out. So
that's kind of how it was, like the few I did with Unsolved Mysteries. It was like so many articles after the fact of people like obviously what they're doing is good because it's raising awareness and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And I will say this was my first episode of the new Unsolved Mysteries, and I really liked it. So
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So on May 31st, 1995, a woman checked into the Plaza Hotel in Oslo, Norway. So what happened during her stay in room 2805 remains a mystery today. So the Plaza Hotel is a luxury hotel in Oslo. Many celebrities and politicians stay there when visiting Norway. Like it's a pretty big, like prominent place. A lot of like important people that go there, you know, like 5-star hotel kind of thing. So on June 3rd, 1995, the cashier at the hotel realized that the guest in room 2805 had not checked out, even though she had only paid for 3 days. So she did pay with cash. So they didn't have a card on file. So at this point, like she was supposed to have checked out, or she should have come down to extend her stay. So the person at the front desk sends a security guard to the room to check on her. So when he gets there, the do not disturb sign is on the door, and the maid reports that it has been there for the past 2 days. So the security guard knocked on the door and then heard a gunshot from inside the room. He then ran back to security headquarters to get the security chief. And it was 15 minutes before the two men got back up to the room. So that's a pretty good amount of time that like anyone could like leave, come and go. Lots of things that could happen in 15 minutes. So they knocked and no one answered. So they did use their master key to enter, but they noticed that the room was like double locked from the inside. So it did indicate that the door had not been opened since the person inside locked it. So inside, they found the body of the woman who had been staying in that room on the bed. She was holding a gun, and there was a gunshot wound to her head. And there was like a strange, like acrid smell, and also a plate of food that was recently ordered from room service with only a few bites taken out of it. There was no evidence of a struggle, and the security guards did close the door and call police and wait for them to arrive. So, like, this is looking like a suicide, but, like, we're just gonna call the police and have them, you know, check it out. And initially, police agreed and were like, yeah, this kind of seems like a pretty classic suicide, like, single gunshot wound to the head. You're holding the gun. You are alone in this room that has been locked behind you, like, from the inside. Pretty clear cut. The woman was alone, and there were also no signs that anyone had been staying with her. So the door's like key card records would show each time someone opened the door using her key. So like anytime someone would use the thing to open it, it would have like a record of the time. So there were very few entries for the 3 days that she had stayed there, and there were none like right before she was shot. So it didn't appear that anyone had come into her room in the few hours beforehand. However, with all of this that's looking like a suicide, there are also a lot of pieces of evidence that don't add up. So the first being there was no identity for this woman in the room. So there was no driver's license. She didn't have any credit cards. She had no passport, like no identifying information. There were also no car keys or house keys. Like if you're traveling from somewhere to a hotel, like you're going to have some of those items on you. Like how could you, like you couldn't drive a car. You couldn't, I mean, this was the 90s. So like flight, could be different, but like you should have some kind of identifying information or your house keys to like get back home, like your car key, like it just makes no sense. She also didn't have like any toiletries. So there's no toothbrush, hairbrush, makeup, none of those things. She's been in this hotel for 3 days. So just very odd. Not really, again, the scene you would expect for someone who had like traveled to get to the hotel, even if they were traveling to the hotel like for the purpose of suicide. Like she'd also been there for 3 days beforehand,
And you said it's like a very like 5-star hotel,
Yeah,
a really nice
it's a high-end hotel.
It's like, why would you choose that? And why would you have absolutely nothing with you?
Exactly. But it gets weirder. So even more bizarre, she only had clothes for her upper body. So she didn't have any pants. She didn't have any skirts, like literally no clothing in the entire room that would cover her lower half. But she had like lots of clothing.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, exactly. But she had lots of clothing for her upper half. It wasn't like she just had one single outfit. Like she had a lot of clothing for the upper half, but none for the lower half.
Did a man pack for her to stay? Did a man be like, I'll pack for you, honey, and forgot? Like, I don't know. That just seems like something like if I asked Kevin to pack for me that he would not
for sure
even like think about it. Like
I can definitely see that happening.
No toiletries, half of your clothes are there. That is a man packing that suitcase. I'm telling you right now.
I think that's an important clue to this story, Courtney. I think Courtney contacts Unsolved Mysteries after this and is like, I just need to share this piece of information and you can run with it as you will, but this is but all of the labels on her clothing that she did have were also removed. So like they didn't have any tags, like there were no brand names, no sizes, like all of that had been removed. She was dressed all in black, including high-heeled shoes, even though
did she have like pants on?
I don't think so. Nothing ever like specified, but everything that I read in the episode was basically like she had no articles of clothing for like her lower half, but it didn't say like if she was wearing pants but had no other pants, you know what I mean? It didn't really specify.
That's what I was wondering. Like, I mean, it would still be odd to only bring one pair of pants and like all these like shirts, but I'm like, did she at least have pants on then, or is it just missing altogether?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like it wasn't super clear on that point. And someone had taken a shower in the room shortly before her death. So like some items were still wet and she had been in the middle of eating. So like if we're to assume that no one else has been in the room with her, like it's just her. Again, we've talked about this many, many times. Like suicide doesn't always make sense, but to take a shower and like eat a few bites of a meal first just kind of seems odd, and to like literally do it the moment someone knocks on the door. I don't know. They also noticed that she had this like really odd grip like on the gun. So like her thumb was over the trigger and not her finger. So Andrew and I actually got into a discussion about this because I was telling him about this case before we came on to record today. And I was like, is it even possible? And he's like, yeah, it's definitely like possible. But then I was like kind of explaining it more. And like I showed him like the pictures that are out there. And he's like, no, that's a really weird like grip on a gun. Because he's like, well, you could use like 2 hands to like make sure that your thumb is strong enough to like pull the trigger. And then I guess your hand could like fall away. But they also mentioned that this was a really powerful weapon that would have like a strong recoil, but she did have a strong grip on the gun after it had been fired, like even with her weird grip. So it's like, okay, like this is like likely going to knock your hand back quite a bit. Would you still have such a strong grip on it in this really weird, like backwards position of holding it?
In your hand at all and not like across the room.
Exactly. And like if you see the pictures, like we're not going to put them on our Instagram because we don't put stuff that graphic, but if you look them up, they're out there and they're not the ones that are out there aren't super graphic, like they don't have like her face or anything, but you can see like the hand gripping the gun, like it's pretty tightly on there.
Mm-hmm.
And also this, I mean, probably one of like the key factors here, there was no blood on her hands, which is like nearly impossible shooting yourself in the head to not have any blood on your hands. Like, because that's one thing that Andrew said too. He's like, what if she like held it out as far as possible? And I'm like, that's still like 2 feet, maybe, if she has long arms. Like, that's still not going to,
That's still not
you're still
far
going to have
enough to
blood there.
not have blood on your hands. Yeah.
Yeah. There was also a briefcase in her room with 25 rounds of ammo. So, like, if she did come to this hotel with the sole purpose of completing suicide, why would you need 25 rounds of ammo? And the registration number had also been removed from the weapon, but it appeared to have been done like in a professional way. So not just like an amateur trying to like scratch it off. Like didn't seem like something you would like buy on the streets, but like a professional like weapon that had had this identifying information removed. So first of all, police are curious like how this woman was able to check into a 5-star hotel with no ID or no credit card. So they do review the hotel sign-in records for that room to try to see like, okay, like what did she put? Because they had like manual or like written registration cards, you know, versus like a computer system because it's the 90s. So she had signed in on the card with the name Jennifer Fairgate, but she did misspell the name in 2 different places. So like there were like 3 different spellings of the name on the card, like in like the different places where she had to put her name. So they're like, okay, this kind of seems like a fake name. Like, why would you misspell your name so many times? Her date of birth was listed as 8/28/73, which would have made her 21 years old. So she had listed a Belgium address on the card, and the hotel clerks also remembered that she spoke German, probably with like an East German accent. Like that's what they like remembered, you know, from her accent. And there was also a man named Lois Fairgate who was listed on the registration card. So the hotel operator believed this man did check in with her, but no one else remembered seeing him. And several witnesses reported seeing Jennifer a few times throughout her stay, but she was always alone. There was a bottle of men's cologne in the bathroom, but there were like no other signs that anyone else was in the room with her, like no other clothing or toiletries or anything else. So fingerprints were collected from Jennifer's room, but her fingerprints were the only ones that were there. They did run them through Interpol, but they didn't come up with any records to like find out the real identity of this woman. And toxicology reports were only done for alcohol, no other substances. So if she had been drugged, that could explain like why there were no signs of a struggle if she was murdered, but they didn't test for anything else to know. There are also no records of police checking the hotel cameras, even though the hotel did have working cameras at the time. So that's very interesting. Like, why would you not? I mean, maybe they looked and there was nothing there, but nothing being there would also be an important piece of evidence to include in your records. Like that
and
wouldn't
you would
be something.
think if something that big happened in your hotel, that you would keep that no matter what. As
right.
Like, what if a family comes back and says we did something, or what if, you know, just to cover your own ass. And I feel like something as like such a prestigious hotel, like you'd be like, I'm going to keep this in the maybe one day someone is going to come question this or whatever, because somebody died and we do have like video recording of no one coming in a room, someone, you know, something.
But like also like the security guards were outside the door when the shot was fired. So it's like police would have gotten there immediately. It's not like recordings would have been deleted. Like I can maybe understand if like they found this body and they didn't know it had been there for days, a week. You know, people started to smell something and reported something, and that's how it came to be. And at that point, maybe the recordings had been like recorded over, but you were literally there when it happened. So there should be no reason to not look at these cameras. It doesn't make any sense.
And also, I feel like as a security guard, I'd be like, keep that to prove I didn't go into her room or something. You know what I mean?
Point.
Like,
that's a good point.
Something to cover the hotel and their employees' like asses, basically.
Yeah, but we'll get into some theories at the end that might come back up. So the police were also not able to find like any records of a Jennifer Fairgate with that date of birth, like nothing that's, you know, popping up anywhere. Again, most likely a fake name. Her description didn't match any missing persons reports. And the medical examiner did believe she was closer to like 30 years old versus the 21 that she had written on the registration card. But despite the many signs of suicide, the case was still treated as a homicide investigation, which is good because there were so many odd aspects of this case. And they did keep her body for 1 year to see if anyone came forward. And when they didn't, they buried her on June 26, 1996.
So Lars Christian Wegner was a featured journalist for VG newspaper and wrote an article about Jennifer's mysterious death in 1996. And he would continue to revisit his notes for the next 20 years because he was just like so haunted by this woman and her story, you know, like what happened to her, and like no one ever came forward. Like, how does someone just die in a hotel room and no one knows anything?
Yeah, like how was no one reported her missing? No one has like called asking about her. Like, very strange.
And despite the case remaining open, no new information came to light over those 20 years. So, with the help of Unsolved Mysteries, Lars visited Belgium to seek answers about this woman and her death. So, the address she had listed on the registration card was in Verlin, Belgium. So, this is a small town with a population of 4,000 people. And Lars thought, like, surely he would find someone that knew Jennifer if she was really from there, because that's really not that big of a town. Like,
Yeah,
somebody has to know who she is.
exactly.
He showed her picture around to many of the citizens, but no one recognized her. He even spoke with the mayor, whose family had lived there for like generations, and they didn't know her either. So the house number she listed on the registration card didn't exist. However, she had the road name and zip code correct for the town. So it appeared she was at least like familiar with this area. And like, again, this is 95. Like, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have Google at our fingertips. So it's like, she couldn't just easily access that information. So like she could have not gotten it right because it's not readily available. So Lars reviewed the evidence available in the case and was able to create a timeline based on the key card records for entry to the room. It only showed entry and not exit, but showed that someone entered with Jennifer's key at 10:44 p.m. on Wednesday. 2 maids visited her room before 1 p.m. on Thursday, and it was empty. And her key wasn't swiped again until 8:50 a.m. Friday morning. So for the 3 days she's checked into the hotel, she was gone for more than 20 hours of it. Like, she was barely there.
Yeah. And like, you're gone like overnight too. So like, why are you checked into a hotel for 3 days and then spending one of those nights away?
Yeah. At, I'm sure, a very expensive hotel.
Yeah, exactly.
So Israel and Palestine authorities were known to meet for negotiations in Oslo. Lars and his team like start wondering if Jennifer was an agent for some country's intelligence service. So it's common for agents of intelligence services to remove clothing tags at the time so they couldn't be tracked to their country of origin. Like, you want, if you're kidnapped as a spy or in the intelligence services, like, you don't want anything to identify you whatsoever.
Yes, which also that made me think, I can't remember the name. I think he was like recently identified, but the man that was
Somerton Man.
Yes. Yes. It was the same thing with him, right? Where all the clothing tags have been removed. Yep. Yep. Okay. Because as soon as I read that, that was my first thought too.
Because they thought he was like a spy or something like that, because they'd like all been cut out, like purposefully cut out.
Yeah.
So they also believed her long absence from the hotel meant she could have been in a meeting somewhere else. Other agents also would have been able to like easily double lock the door from the outside if another agent had murdered her. So like, it could work out.
Like, they know how to manipulate the doors to make it seem like it had been locked from the inside when it really hadn't. Or like maybe they were able to like get out a window. Well, it's the 28th floor. I don't know. Anyway, they're intelligence agencies. They can probably do all kinds of.
But also, like,
stuff.
I don't know if there's like, you know how most hotels have like a door that like connects the hotel rooms. Like,
true.
If she knew who was staying in the next one. But I've also seen where like people are like, be very careful like traveling with hotels, because people know how to like, even if you do like the deadbolt one that you only lock from the inside, people know how to like actually like get that to unlock. So I'm sure they could also find a way to get it to lock. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure they know how to do all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they wanted to test the evidence with new DNA, but all of the evidence in the case had been destroyed because they had believed it had been a death by suicide. So November 16th, 2016, 24 years after her death, Jennifer's body was exhumed to try to obtain DNA, and they were able to get a full DNA profile and send it off for testing. Unfortunately, they didn't have a match because no one with that DNA has ever been reported missing, but they did determine she was of European heritage, and they were able to estimate her age using C14 levels in her teeth. So the Cold War resulted in an increase in C14 levels in the atmosphere from nuclear bombs, and the amount of C14 in someone's bones can show what the level of C14 in the atmosphere was at the time of their death. So they can do like a lot of stuff like this. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, it is super cool.
Even to like they can sometimes determine where people are from, like based on stuff in their teeth. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, they're probably, I'm sure people from Flint, Michigan who drank lead water for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
If someone came up missing, they could be like, wow, high levels of lead in their teeth. I mean, I don't know if that's an exact example, but things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this technology estimated Jennifer's age as 24. And due to her DNA, age, and accent, it is believed she likely spent time in Germany. And Lars worked with a large German newspaper to share her sketch and story to see if anyone recognized her, but nothing came of it. So many have criticized the hotel staff and police in this case. So why was Jennifer allowed to check into a five-star hotel with no ID or credit card? This question is posed online, but also it's 1995. Is that something they even did at this time? I don't think they did.
Because that's the thing.
Were credit cards a big thing then? Like as big as they are today?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because I know checkbooks were still a thing like when we were growing up. Like I remember my mom like writing checks at the grocery store, you know.
I mean, I know credit cards did exist.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be unusual to pay with cash versus a credit card. But with the ID, I'm like, did they ask for ID? Like, was it a common like thing with like fancier hotels that it would be unusual that they didn't, but not necessarily like, oh, I don't know. It's kind of odd though.
Yeah, because now like any hotel you go to, ask for a card for incidentals or whatever, like even if it's prepaid. But like, was that even a thing then? Like, I don't know. It's hard for me because it's like, I remember my parents talking about growing up, how there wasn't even really like, you know, debit cards and stuff like that. And I just don't know if they just didn't use credit cards that much, or if it's like, what was the process? I don't know.
Yeah.
So as mentioned earlier, there were working cameras in the hotel, but no police records of cameras being checked after the fact, which is a huge misstep. Like, even if you think this is just a death by suicide, maybe just cover your bases.
Yeah, but just check, just in case.
They also were treating it as a homicide investigation. So I'm like, then why didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of things that don't really add up.
So many think the hotel staff could have been involved because of the limited information, and also the fact that a security guard checks on her after 3 days, and it's that exact moment there's a gunshot from inside. Like,
yeah. A lot of people speculated that like, were they in on it? Were they like told to go there at a specific time by someone like to hear the gunshot? Or like, was there more, you know, how was she able to like check into this hotel without any kind of identifying information? Like some people were like, was she murdered? Was she an agent that was murdered by another agent? And the other agent was like, I need you to check her in without any information, basically so that we can kill her. I don't know. There's a lot of theories out there.
Yeah, because like, and even without the credit card, like I still feel like an ID, like they would want your name or something. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Very weird.
Like, especially like a nice hotel. Like this isn't like the Motel 6 where you can just come in and pay cash for a few hours. Like this is like a 5-star hotel.
A 5-star, yeah. So why didn't the security guard immediately call the police instead of getting the security chief first, checking it out, and then calling police? Like, why did he do it in that order and not just be like, I heard a gunshot, I'm calling police?
Like you're a security guard. I feel like a gunshot inside a room, you're like, oh, I'm gonna let the police handle that. I don't think that. I think that's a little outside.
I would be like, that is above my pay grade.
Exactly. Like, why are like, oh, let's go check it out? Unless it's just some like macho man thing where they're like, oh yeah, I'll go. This is my hotel. I'll see what's going on. And
I know also too, because it is such a high profile 5-star hotel, if there was a murder, they might want to try and like
Um,
cover it up so it doesn't get like into the news.
that's a
You
good
know what I
point.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like even like a death by suicide in the hotel would probably put like a bad mark on it, but like you're like I'm like one of the nicest hotels in Oslo, Norway, and now a murder has been reported in here. Like we got to
Mm-hmm.
check this out before we call the police. Like we got to make sure we know what's going on in here before the police show up for all of our astute guests.
That is a really good point. That is a good point.
Because I feel like we've seen that before where they're like, let's cover this up.
That's definitely happened in a Law and Order SVU episode. It's the very day that the hotel opened, by the way. Anyway, great episode if you guys know the one I'm talking about.
So anyway, the most common theory online is that she was an agent in an intelligence service. The removed tags on her clothing, no ID or personal items, the gun's registration number being removed professionally, and the door being double locked despite Jennifer being the only one inside. So they're like, all this we think just kind of points to she's an agent in some service like this, and something happened probably with other agents as well.
And also, like, no one ever reporting this person missing. Like, some people are like, oh, like, if she was, like, involved in one of those agencies, like, they could take care of her family and be like, we'll, you know, give you money, whatever, to, like, not get it out there that she, like, belonged to us, or, like, they didn't know, or she has no family, or.
That's what I was kind of thinking too. Like I know a lot of times when you're like a spy or an agent, it's like you do that when you don't have any family or you
Yeah.
don't have anything to lose. Because like obviously if you get found out, like your family is like a liability. And obviously this isn't every case, but like I feel like a lot of times if you're an agent, like constantly everywhere, can't say where you're gonna be, you're more likely to be like a single individual without as many close ties versus like I have 7 kids at home who are now wondering where I am.
Yeah, exactly.
So, if you have any information about who Jennifer Fairgate really is or what happened to her, please contact Jennifer at vg.no. So, that's kind of the email they set up. If somehow one of our international listeners just really is wanting to make known what happened, and please contact because it's
Yeah.
Jennifer deserves that. She deserves her real name and what really happened to her.
Exactly. It's also interesting because there's two different like sketches of her that are circulated because obviously there's like no photos of this person because no one knows who she is. So they basically have two sketches of like what she would have looked like alive, which I feel like is also hard too because I feel like you can't get people's like mannerisms right if you're only doing it
Like
like
their expressions, kind
yeah,
of.
like if you're
Yeah.
only doing a sketch of like someone who you found deceased and now you're like trying to make them look alive for the sketch. But there's two different sketches and they both look wildly different. Like
That's another thing about
I'm
checking the
gonna show you
cameras
right
is
now.
couldn't you just get like her face on the camera checking in and being like, "Do you know this woman?" Like, I mean, maybe cameras in 1995 weren't that good,
But they
but
didn't check the cameras. So it's like how would they
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, why
yeah.
wouldn't you check them to be like, let me at least like get a picture of her, like actually her. I think I saw this. I didn't see them a lot. I saw them a little bit because when I was reading through this case, it made me think of Death in Ice Valley. Did you ever read that?
I read that
I
one.
mean, not read it. Listen to it. It's a
Oh,
podcast
no.
series.
I have not listened to it either.
Wait, so is this a sketch?
Yeah.
Wow, that
I
looks like a
really yeah.
picture.
I kept like looking at it because I'm like, no, that's definitely a sketch. But like there's that sketch and then there's this sketch. And like these two women look nothing
Yeah,
alike. Like the
they
chin is
don't.
completely different. Like we'll post both of these on the Instagram so you guys can see them. But like the hair is different. Like the chin is different. The
The
nose, like
nose, the
yeah,
nose
I'm like
looks
this.
skinnier in this other sketch. But wow, that one sketch, that looks like a picture.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible because I was at first like I was like, how in the world did they like have this picture of this woman? Because but then I'm like, oh, like this is a sketch. Like if you look like the shadows under here and but yeah, it's I mean an incredible sketch for sure.
Yeah, but Death in Ice Valley is something similar where it's a woman who they do not know her name and she was killed in like oh Bergen, Norway. Bergen. I'm sure it's
Oh,
pronounced differently.
also in Norway. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
so that's why I was thinking because it was like a woman who was found murdered. I think they also thought she was like a special agent or something because she had like nothing on her. But she was
Mm-hmm.
found in it's called like Isidol. I'm sorry, I'm probably saying it wrong, but like is basically translate to Ice Valley. But she was kind of found just like burned and like no one
Mm,
ever knows what happened to her, how she got there, anything like that. And it's like very
interesting.
similar to this case, I feel like.
Yeah. That is very odd being. Do you know what part of, or I guess the, I'm just gonna delete that. Yeah, especially being like kind of in the same area and hmm,
Let
that
me
is really
see how far
interesting.
away those two places are.
Because I feel like European countries are pretty small too. So like maybe they're, is it kind of Europe? Like Scandinavian countries? I'm talking out
So
my
they're not
ass.
that close together because these places are almost 8 hours apart.
Oh,
So
okay. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay.
it's because I think Norway is so wide, and so they're on like opposite ends of
Yeah.
like.
That is strange. They do sound very similar. But yeah, if you guys happen to have any kind of information on this, the death of this woman and who she really was and what happened to her, and I don't know, Courtney, what do you think? What's your feeling?
I don't know because I'm like everything about it is so suspicious
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like there's too much. Like, how does she have no clothes for her lower half?
Yeah.
How does she not have a toothbrush? How does she?
And like, did she check in with those things, but the person who murdered her had to take them for whatever reason? Like, did those for some reason identify something about her or where she was from or
And like, why is it again? Like she's supposed to check out. So the only reason the security guard comes up there is because she's supposed to be checking out. And
mm-hmm.
that's suddenly when she decides this is it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would make more sense if someone was like in her room and heard the knock and got like spooked or something.
Yeah.
And like the no blood on her hands, like, I don't know. It's all, none of it adds up. Like,
Yeah. And the fact that like the security guard heard it, left to get someone else, and then came back, like there's a big time that someone could have easily left. So it's like her being
and I feel
alone in
like
the
as a
room doesn't
security
say
guard too,
anything.
if you heard a gunshot, wouldn't you knock and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, is everything okay in there? Like, I know that's
Especially if
scary,
you're
but
gonna
you're a
come back.
security guard.
Yeah.
Like maybe like call down and be like, I heard gunshots, like send help. But
Yeah.
like also like, isn't it your job as the security guard to be like, let me make sure this person's okay? What's
True.
happening in there? Like,
Yeah.
is
That's
this
why
like
a
a
lot of people are like,
domestic abuse issue? Like, what's happening?
yeah, that's why I think a lot of people think the hotel staff was in on it and like it was like staged that way to like make sure the person, I don't know. I don't know.
Because the thing is, there was 15 minutes and they did come in to check. They could have been like, this looks like a, because they went into the hotel
Mm.
room, right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
So
because
how
they
did they
went
know it
in.
was double locked? I guess because they had to undouble lock it.
I
That
guess,
sounds
yeah.
so
I'm like,
dumb.
I don't know what specific mechanism they had to know. Like, was it like a deadbolt? Was it like one of the things that like flip? Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was, but yeah, I guess it was some way for them to get in. But that's a good point. Like, they went in and then they were like, "Ooh," and then they backed themselves out. So could they have messed up the
Could
crime
they
scene?
have
Could they?
been
I mean,
like,
intentionally. Like, did they get paid to go in and?
yeah.
That's a
Could they
good
have seen
point.
this as a murder or could they see something even more suspicious? Or did the security guard go in there and she became confrontational and he got trigger happy that day? I don't think in Norway they have guns like that as much, but I don't know. I'm just
But who
saying,
knows?
maybe I'm
Yeah.
looking at this too American, but like it's just odd
Hmm.
that like they go in there and we're like, how do we know they didn't mess with it at all?
That's true. And also, like, if this was just a woman who like checked into this hotel like with the purpose of dying by suicide, I mean, one, why would you check in for 3 days? Like, I mean, maybe you're thinking about it, maybe, whatever. But like you had just ordered food, like we said. But to me, the piece that like doesn't line up with that is that there's still no way to know who you are. Like, that's too specific of a circumstance that makes me think there's more than just I came here
Mm.
to die by suicide, because why wouldn't you have ID? Why wouldn't something in you be able to get tracked back? Why wouldn't there be a missing person? Like someone reported you missing. Like it just doesn't add up to me that they would have no way of identifying this person who checked into a 5-star hotel like that. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's like you're not someone who's just like this like transient person that checked into this like tiny little hotel. I mean, of course it happens, but it doesn't really add up, you know?
Yeah, something feels not right
Yeah.
about it. And like, I mean, maybe it possibly could be a death by suicide, but it's just like all this other stuff just doesn't seem like explained. Like,
Yeah.
wear half your clothes. And like, if you didn't have any clothes, like for your lower half, like, wouldn't hotel staff see you walking around like with no pants on and be like, this is a nice hotel. What are you doing? Like,
That's true. I mean, she, like I said, she may have had the one pair of pants like currently on
yeah.
her body. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how detailed the crime scene photos are online. I haven't looked through them to see if they show
Mm-hmm.
all that thought. You know, curiosity will get the best of me. Okay, so it's also hard to tell because I'm not sure what are crime scene photos and what are screenshots from Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like if Unsolved Mysteries was doing a reenaction, wouldn't they keep it like kind of similar? But
I
I
would
don't
hope
know.
so. Hold that thought. Okay, so I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure I just looked at some of the actual crime scene photos. It is from the VG newspaper that this Lars wrote the first article for. So it talks about the Unsolved Mysteries episode, but there are what are clearly actual crime scene photos, and I'm pretty sure I saw pictures of her bottom half. It appears that she was wearing like pantyhose and like a short skirt.
Okay.
So it does appear that she had some sort of
At least
just this one bottom on. Yeah.
Okay.
But she's been there for 3 days. So,
It's
I mean,
still weird.
yeah, exactly. Like,
but it at least explains like maybe she had something.
Yeah.
But
she wasn't leaving the hotel in her underwear. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know. It seems too odd to be. And if it was policy to check an ID and have a credit card, that's weird too, that you would let this just random woman just be like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and check in without any of that. If this is, just a random woman whose intention is to, complete suicide, why are you going to like go like over your policies for a woman who has no status or has no credentials? Like,
yeah. Also, this article that I found did not show up when I was researching this case for some reason. I think because it is like a Norway website or newspaper. So I'm going to read through this thoroughly after we finish this recording. And if I see anything that I need to add a footnote in, I will do that when editing this episode, because there's a whole bunch of information in this article. Like, some of it seems like very, very specific. Like, there's like, here's her watch and here's us comparing like where all these types of watches are sold, that like, could she be from this country or this country, but there could be some interesting and important information in there. So I feel like the Unsolved Mysteries would probably include all the big points that you need to know, since a lot of it came, from this article. But I'm definitely going to look through that too and let you guys know if anything else comes of that. Okay, so here we are again. We just told you guys that I was going to read through this brand new article that I so wonderfully discovered in the middle of recording to see if there was any additional information. And I was like, I'll hop on and let you guys know. And there was a good amount. So Courtney is also here with me. So I'm just going to...
Hey guys, I'm back. 24 hours later, we're here.
Our first...
I'm back, even though you've been listening to me for the past 40 minutes. I didn't go anywhere for you. I've been here the whole time.
You're like, I've still been in your ear the whole time, but we went away and lived a whole day and came back, and now here we are. So just want to clarify a few things that we learned in this article. I don't know, when I searched the photos last night or 10 minutes ago, as you guys are listening, when I searched the photos and I pulled up the article that one of the photos was from, that's how I found this article. So it came up through like Google Images, but not through like the regular Google search results, which is really weird. But it is a Norwegian article that has been translated to English. So I don't know if that's why, because it's a Norwegian website. I don't know. But again, so I just wanted to clear up a few things that we may have gotten wrong that are in a few minutes ago, and then just kind of add some additional information. So the one thing I wanted to point out first is that this room did cost the equivalent of $330 per night in like today's US dollars. So we're talking about it being like a pretty, expensive, like 5-star hotel. So just kind of give you that like comparison. So I did get this part wrong. I thought she paid cash for her 3 nights. She did not pay at all. So she didn't pay anything.
Oh,
which
okay.
I don't know how that got kind of misconstrued in the episode. Or maybe I just like made assumptions and pulled that out of my ass. I don't know. But she didn't like give a credit card to hold and also did not pay cash. But they did talk about in this article. So at the time that she checked in, I guess there were like a lot of flights that came into this area at like the same time of day. So they would have like this mass rush like at like 10, 11 o'clock at night of people checking in. And the day that she checked in, there was also a police officer strike. So the article said there was only one passport officer on duty that night, like in the hotel, which I'm kind of confused about what that has to, I don't know what a passport officer does. I don't know if something got lost in translation or if it's just a foreign thing that like we don't do here. But basically there was a strike. There weren't a lot of people there. There were a lot of people checking in and not a lot of people working. So the hotel staff said they were trying to get people checked in as quickly as possible. So that might account for...
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If like they're not looking at the ID and maybe like, because there were typos on her card, if they're being like, hurry, 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 like, can you hurry?
Yeah.
Or if, did she fill it out or did the hotel staff fill it out?
She filled it out.
Yeah. So maybe she was just like rushing because she's like trying to get it done really quick and they're hurrying her along too.
So it's like they could have been operating on like an honor system of like, we trust that you'll pay when you check out because this is like a 5-star hotel, or it could have just been overlooked. Don't really know what exactly happened, but that does kind of explain where some of the oversight came from when checking in. They did also interview in this article another guest who stayed at the hotel, and she was like, yeah, like I didn't even fill out a registration card that night. Like she's like, things were just so rushed that like they literally just like gave me my key and were like, get in your room. Like they're just trying, like they're known for like their service and they don't want people sitting around waiting for hours to like check into a hotel because that's a really bad first impression. So so there's that kind of makes some sense. And so they also sent like messages. Remember, this is the 90s, but I guess they could like pop up a message on the television in the room saying like, hey, come see us, you owe money. So it like, when you turn on your screen, it'll like have this message that says, come to the front desk because, you know, we need to talk, you owe a balance, whatever it said. And you would have to like press it and like, okay it to like get it to go away so you could watch TV. So
okay.
Yeah.
I know there's kind of things like that now. I didn't know they had it back then, but I guess this is a fancy hotel, so it's pretty progressive.
Yeah, right. Like that makes sense. So that popped up like the second night they realized that she hadn't paid. And it was like 10 hours before she like okayed it, before someone in the room like clicked okay on it. And then the next day they realized, okay, she still hasn't come down. They sent it again. And it was 8 minutes that time before she okayed it. So there were 2 messages sent to the room saying that she owed a balance. Someone pressed okay and then still never came down. So after that happened, that's when they sent the security guard to check it out. And the security guard did say that he didn't use his radio like we talked about because he didn't want to like alert the whole staff to the fact that there was a gunshot. Because if he like called over his radio, hey, there was just a gunshot, then every person who works in that hotel.
And
yes,
the nurses might have it on their, not the nurses, the maids might have it on their little carts.
Everyone's
so then it's going to be blasting
yes.
to employees, like, I mean, to guests. I can't talk tonight.
Exactly.
Today.
But that makes sense. Another thing that was really important that was not included anywhere else, 2 shots had been fired from the gun. So the first shot went into the pillow and like through the mattress. So they're like, if this was a suicide, like, was it like a test run that she's like, I want to see how this thing works to like make sure I'm doing it correctly? Or did she like change her mind and like move at the last second and just shoot it into the thing? Or is this, you know, a murder? They missed the first time she fought, you know, whatever it was. But an important thing to consider. So we talked about the clothing, the tags being removed from the clothing. So there was one jacket in her closet that did have a tag still. So basically it was like impossible to remove this tag without destroying the lining. Like there was no like, it wasn't stitched to anything. It was like part of the lining of the coat. So there's really no way to remove it. So they were able to like trace that to something that was sold in Germany. So now we have another connection to Germany. And also the manufacturer name had even been like scrubbed off of like the inside of her pair of shoes. So I'm like, that's pretty like extreme because with like the tags on the clothing, like you could argue like, oh, maybe she has like sensory issues. And so she
doesn't like the tag touching her.
Yeah. But like scrubbing it off of the shoes, I'm like, that is a clear indication that like this is a means to conceal her identity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the pants thing. So we talked about the pants thing, how I looked at the picture and I'm like, it looks like she's wearing pantyhose and a skirt. So she's wearing pantyhose and like short, like pajama short underwear type things, but like not underwear, like the boxer brief shorts that you would like sleep in, but not like a pair of like panties. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So nothing that you would like walk around in the hotel in without drawing attention to yourself. But the hotel staff did say she was wearing a skirt when she checked in. So that skirt has disappeared. That skirt was not found in her room. There were no articles of pants, skirts, anything in her room. Also no underwear. So she was wearing these little like boxer brief, pajama short type things, but didn't have any underwear on underneath it and no underwear in the entire room. So you've been there for 3 days and you have no underwear.
But that's weird too. Like if there was a skirt at some point and now all of those article of clothing is gone. How did she get to her room?
Exactly.
Because she would have drawn attention, especially in a $330 per night hotel room.
Yeah, exactly. So like specifically the items that she did have were 4 jackets, 1 blouse, 1 sweater, and 4 bras. But then just the little shorts and no pants, no skirts, no underwear. So 4 bras for a 3-day trip. Like I'm only packing like 1 bra for like a week-long trip. Okay, so
yeah,
like, that's a lot.
And especially to have no underwear and no pants, no skirts.
Yeah, but to have 4 bras.
None of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So also one of the maids that was interviewed said she saw this pair of shoes when she was cleaning the room and she like took notice of them because she really liked them. So she like went to look at them and see like what kind of shoes they were because she wanted to like look for them herself. And like she was interviewed like 20 years later. So she's like, I don't remember like if there was a brand name or what it was or whatever, but those shoes were never found. So we have at least 1 skirt and at least 1 pair of shoes that have disappeared in the 3 days that she's been in the hotel. So where are they? Because they're not in her room. They did also discover that the gun was made in Belgium. So nothing like hugely identifying, but that is a little piece of information. I feel like it's important to include. There were no fingerprints on the gun, but they did say that's not unusual with like the texture of the weapon, that they're like there were no fingerprints, but also like it's hard to get fingerprints on the type of texture that it was. So they're like, that doesn't necessarily point to like it being wiped down or something. It could just be none were on there, but it could also point to it being wiped down after she was shot, which again would be murder because she is shot. So it would not be her.
She cannot.
Yeah. And we talked about all of her items being thrown away because they determined it was a suicide. So that did happen 2 months after her burial. So I guess by that point they were like, we're not going to get anything else.
Because it had been a year after that they buried her, right?
Yeah.
And then 2 more months. So yeah.
They did also say, as far as like the missing persons case, which I don't really see. I get where they're getting at with it being important, but it's also not super important to me because even if something happened to a missing persons case back in 95, this has been out there for a long time. It would have come up again. It's not like, oh, well, they didn't take my case and I'll just forget about my sister that I reported missing, But they did mention that missing persons cases were like handled differently in this area at the time. In Belgium, which is where they're like speculating that she was, because that was the address she gave, that was the weapon. But again, they think that she also spent time in Germany, so it's not completely clear. But they did say that like in Belgium at the time that missing persons cases were kind of like, we don't really, it wasn't really treated as serious, like very seriously, because they're like, oh, well, if you just want to disappear.
Sure, as an adult too, because think of it even today when adults go missing and they're like, okay, sure.
Exactly.
So I'm sure that was the same way back then.
Yeah. And they said the area that she like reported on her card that she like lived in was the same area that Marc Dutroux, who we have covered, kidnapped his first victim just a couple of months after this woman's death. So it was after that missing persons cases started being taken seriously in Belgium. So there's basically like a huge divide, like before Marc Dutroux and after Marc Dutroux, of like when they started like taking them seriously.
And if I remember correctly, wasn't it like Marc Dutroux was like an outlier? Like Belgium like rarely had any violence. There was rarely anything like this. It was like a shock to the country because it was like nothing like this happens here. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So they also did not find gunshot residue on her hands. So that was another piece of evidence that was not included in the episode. But they also said that it's not a given that it shows up. They're like, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Like, it's not one of those like super damning pieces of evidence, which I thought was interesting because I always thought it was like, oh no, it'll definitely be there.
Heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a differing
But you
opinion.
said this article was kind of older, right?
This was in like 2016-ish. So they had...
Okay, so not that old. I didn't know if it was like maybe more evidence came out about gunshot residue from the time they like made that statement versus now.
Like they had the original article like at the bottom, but like the most of the stuff came from the 20 years later, like when he went back and was like looking into it again.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so I don't know. They said like it could be like the weird angle that she had too, that like the way that it came back wouldn't have like landed in the same spot that it normally does. I don't know. I'm not an expert, so just giving you guys the information that they said. So we talked about the room service that had been delivered and like that she had like eaten, just a few bites of the food. But this part was super interesting. So the room service had actually been delivered the day before the gunshot and when she was found. And only a few bites had been eaten, but that food was found in her stomach. So either she didn't die when the gunshot went off, like she had been dead the whole time, which the coroner did not think was true. Like they thought that she had died when they heard the gunshot. So either she died the night before after she ordered the room service, or she ate room service that was a full day old. I don't know. Yeah, it's very weird though.
And it depends like what it is too. Like, is it a bagel? That's not that weird to eat. That's like been sitting there for a day. Or is it like...
It's sausage and potato salad.
Okay, yeah, you are not eating that a day old.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That would make you really sick if it had been sitting out for like a full day.
Exactly. So, yeah, like, so I don't know. So that was very strange. Which, like, I know that the way food digest is kind of like I don't want to say junk science, but it's a debated science, I guess, where they're like, it's not an exact, like, people's bodies process things differently, so you can't tell an exact time of death, like, by the stomach contents, but, like, a full day later, you're not going to be able to tell what's in the stomach. Like, I feel like that's just impossible. Like, a few hour time frame, I think you could argue that that's not super accurate, but a full day later, like, something weird going on with that food. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so to more evidence pointing towards her being from Germany. So there was like some jewelry that she was wearing that I guess like the type of carat gold or like the type, like the grade or something of the gold on her ring was like more common to Germany than anywhere else. Again, I don't know the specifics of what that's supposed to mean, but the experts in jewelry or whatever, they're like, oh, we're pretty sure like this came from Germany.
Yeah.
Again, the jacket came from Germany, and then the briefcase that had all the rounds of ammo in it was also traced back to like a German manufacturer. Being an item from Germany doesn't necessarily mean that she was German. I mean, she could have just liked German goods, and it's the 90s. You can order things through like catalogs and have it sent to you. So that's not, something that would necessarily point to her living in Germany, but it's a pretty good indicator that she lived there or maybe was familiar with that. She also had some like specific dental work. So there were just like a few like specific countries that they could tie like the dental work back to that like it could have been one of those. So yeah, so a few more things that kind of could point to where she came from. But yeah, I think the most important things that I learned in this article that I definitely wanted to cover were like the check-in process and like why things were kind of weird. I wanted to correct the fact that she did not pay cash, that she did not pay anything. And then also wanted to correct the pants issue and kind of give some more specific details about the clothing that was found. So
I also think it's very interesting and very important that you said there was a police officer strike at this time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we talk about how police didn't get the camera footage, police didn't whatever. And if there's a big police strike,
that's a good point. Yeah.
How many police are there? Are they just the rookie cops who don't know what they're doing? Or, I think that's a very big thing to be included. You're having this huge strike at the time this accident happens. Like I think that can be pretty significant on the investigation in general.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I didn't even think about that. And also where we talked about, this they found her immediately. So like, it's not like the footage would have like recorded over itself. But if you have a very short staffed police force who's like doing this work, it may have been days, a week before they were like, oh, we should look at the cameras. And then they're like, the hotel staff is like, oh, we didn't save anything. It records over, that's a good point. That could definitely have something to do with it. Or if it's,
inexperienced, like cops who were handling it, because maybe the more experienced or on strike or something, that they're like, oh, it's a death by suicide. Don't have to worry about it. It's good. It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a pretty big part of it too.
Yeah, definitely. So this article that this information came from was from the VG newspaper by Lars Christian Wegner, called Mystery at the Oslo Plaza. So it is very, very detailed. So gave you guys like the highlights. I mean, there's like probably 8 paragraphs about like the gun that was used and like tying it to where it could possibly have come from and why they know that, and all these very, very specific detailed information. Super interesting. So definitely recommend it if you guys were like, enthralled by this case and you want, all the details and all the good information. It was really good. So so we'll let you guys get back to the rest of this episode that was recorded 24 hours ago for us. So
yeah, there you go.
Okay. So hopefully you guys can share any information if you have it. And Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that it's always scary when one of your favorite books gets turned into either a TV series or a movie. But Daisy Jones and the Six is officially out, and it's good. It's really good.
Where is it? Good. Is it in theaters or is it on Netflix?
Amazon
or something?
Prime. So it's a limited series. They released. There's 6 episodes available at the time of this recording. So it was like 3 the first week, 3 this week I haven't watched yet. Then I think it's like 2 and 2 or something. So I only watched the first 3, but it is just so good. It's so good. And like,
I'm so excited.
The casting is so good. And like the vibe of it is so good. Like, I'm really, really liking it so far. And I think it was really well and like thoughtfully done. Like, of course they're going to change like little things like from the book, but like, I don't know. I'm obsessed so far. I love it.
Good. I'm super excited. I have 2 things I want to say to that. So the first one is that I felt the same way about Firefly Lane, that I loved the book. And then I was nervous, as you always do when there's a show. I love the show. It is so good. It's very different though. Like, and it doesn't bother me, which it normally does. Normally I'm like, no, we need to stick to the book. And even things that like, I don't know, there's a lot of differences, but I really like both stories. So I'm glad that you are liking that. And then my second question is Kevin watching it with you, and is it something that Andrew would enjoy, or is it a show I need to watch by myself?
So basically I didn't know if Kevin would like it or not. And so I was kind of like telling him, I was like, it's like a VH1 documentary where it's like talking about this band. And I was like, it's kind of like loosely based on like Fleetwood Mac and like their drama, basically, like of like relationships in a band. And he was like, okay. And like, so basically like I had it on like while he was in the room, but he didn't like pay full attention. So he was like, yeah, it's fine, but I don't know if it's something he'd want to like sit down and watch the whole thing. So he was kind of like playing video games and like looking up, but not like full attention. But
gotcha. So I'm like, obviously I've read the book, like I know the story, and I'm like, I could see it going both ways. Like I could see it being something that the guys would also enjoy, and I could see it being something they're like,
how I felt with Kevin, where I was like, it's not like a straight love story or anything. It's literally like the drama around this band, and like. Not like over the top drama, because it's like literally like look at Fleetwood Mac and all their shit. So, but yeah, I think it's gonna be one of those shows where he's like, don't watch it without me, but I don't want to be doing nothing else while I watch it.
That makes sense. Yeah. Nice. So that's exciting.
That's my perk of the week. It's really great so far, and like I'm really excited to watch the next few episodes. And so what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week, I've been reading Viola Davis's memoir, and it is just so good. If you guys aren't familiar with her, she's the lady in How to Get Away with Murder. She was in The Help. I mean, she's been in a ton of stuff, like literally everything. Like this woman is fantastic. Like she's an amazing actress. And then like reading her memoir, it's one of those that you just like can't put down, like looking at like the extreme poverty that she grew up in and like all of the traumatic things in her life that you're just like, how in the world did you become this like amazing, like talented, successful woman? Like it's so well done. Like
It makes me
is,
think of like Oprah when you hear like Oprah's
yeah,
story and you're just like,
absolutely.
how did you overcome all of this?
Yeah, like I mean, she talks about at one point where she's, doing this like play because she's like, I want to be like an actress is what I want to do. I'm trying to get started. So she's like doing this play at night, and then she's having to take like 4 buses to like get to her. I think she was working 4 jobs at the time. Like she's like in school, she's in this play, she's working 4 jobs. She's having to take like 4 buses to like get to this one job, and then like 4 buses back, and then having to like walk like a mile or a mile and a half to get to like some of the bus stops. And then she's like, the buses are unreliable. So sometimes I'd be like on my way home and it's like, well, now the bus isn't running even though it's supposed to. So I'm going to have to walk or go crash with someone that I know, or like just literally like surviving by the skin of your teeth. And I'm like, how in the world did you turn into who you are today? Like it is really, really like it's a hard read because it's like, some of the things that
A
she talks about are
lot,
just
yeah.
so like traumatic, like very similar to Jeanette McCurdy's memoir, but both so good, so good. I love a memoir.
Yeah. And I think that's important for people too, like especially people who've had like hardships and stuff, but like if you haven't been like at that point, I think it's like you don't think about, because people are always like, oh, just go get a job. Like, what's the big deal? And it's like, well, I don't have a car because I can't afford a car. And then I have to take the bus, and the bus is late. Like at my old job, one of the women I worked with had to take a bus, and she had to leave 2 hours early for her shift because of the way the buses worked out. And then when we closed at 5:30, the bus ran at 5:20. So she would then have to go and sit and wait for the next bus. Or like sometimes, like if there were multiple people, we'd be like, go, like we don't care, go ahead, go catch your bus so you're not sitting. But like she'd then have to wait until like the 6 o'clock, like whenever the next bus came, and just like sit there and wait, basically.
And like if you live in like a big city and public transportation is like so readily available, it's hard to like wrap your brain around the places where it's not, like in very like rural areas and places that, I mean, it's not like New York City where, oh, I missed this train, there will be another one in 3 minutes. Like it's, I mean, hours that you're having to wait. And, like we mentioned, the unreliability of it, of like, oh, well, they just may not come at all. And who knows? And
because I was thinking for a while too, back when I used to go into the office and I lived further away, thinking about like my carbon footprint and all that. And I'm like, maybe I should start taking the bus. Like maybe that would be, but like, it would literally take me 2 hours to get to work because of like the connect. There's no direct bus, and then you'd have to wait, and then you'd have to get a connection and all this, where it's like, well, I can't do that. I mean, but people have to do that, but like I can't do that every day. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend it. It's pretty short. It's not like a super long, so I'm not done with it yet. I'm like a little over halfway done. But it's really good, and it's very inspiring. It's very like, it's everything that I feel like a memoir should be. It's like little short stories that like tell who you are as a person. And there's things that like are hard, and there's things that are like full of hope, and there's like connection to like, this is how I look at it now. And that like, it's just, it's really well done. I'll
have to go put it on hold.
Yeah. I had it on hold for, I think a while. I think like 3 or 4 months before I got it. Like it seems to be, I think it came out recently. Seems to be pretty popular. So yeah, so if you guys want to tell us about the books you're reading, the shows you're watching, what you think happened to Jennifer Fairgate, who she really was, all the things.
Subtitle, no subtitle.
Yes, definitely let us know that. And I'm going to make myself a note to remember to do an Instagram story with a poll the day this episode comes out too. So we can see what that looks like. And engage with our polls. We really like it when you guys respond to our polls and our questions. And
if not, it'll just be me and Jacqueline from our personal Instagrams voting yes.
Yes.
And then it'll be 100% yes. And we'll just say that everyone always watches with subtitles. So if that pisses you off that I just said that, go to our Instagram, Caffeinated Crimes Pod. I know we don't say it anymore, but
if you need it for this episode. Yeah. Yeah, so you guys know where to find us on all the things. Courtney just gave you the Instagram specifically, so we're, the most active there. You guys can also find us on patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes, where we have a bunch of bonus episodes. We have stickers and pins and gifts and just all kinds of, fun little perks that we have for you guys over there. For this month's episode, we're going to listen back to episode 1, and then we're going to give you guys our reflections. So if you want to hear what we think after listening to ourselves 3 years ago now, guys, it's been over 3 years.
This was pre-pandemic life.
This is wild.
We were living in when we recorded that.
Yeah, we literally recorded the first episode before anything happened. Courtney talked about this funny COVID thing.
Yeah, I literally was like, said COVID and was like, I hope this ages well, because I literally thought it was going to be like Ebola, where like 2 people had it and everyone was convinced they were going to get it, and like no one like really
and then
did.
It was nothing. Yeah, not that it was nothing, but like on a widespread. Yeah,
it wasn't COVID.
We did not have any idea that it was going to be of this magnitude.
Nope. But yeah, that'll be a fun listen to just see what we say, what we think. So yeah.
But really getting into like how we feel about podcasting and what we've learned, along the way in the last 3 years, and things that we do differently or things that we've changed, that we've, whatever. So if you guys want to hear kind of the insider.
Because we've made so far probably every mistake a podcast can make so far, if we're being honest.
I mean, that's how you have to learn and figure it out, So,
yeah. But yeah, definitely sign up so you can listen to that. And give us a 5-star on Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you can. Like our YouTube videos, all of that. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.